Shalom Aleichem, brothers and sisters. I'm back. Yes, I'm back to finalize the subject of the kingdom within. Yeshua said the kingdom of Elohim is within you. A very simple concept, but it is not being applied by those who call themselves Hebrews. We are coming up with all type of negating doctrines related to the flesh and not understanding that the purpose of Yahweh is to bring us back into a spiritual relationship with Him and not a fleshly one. So we have gone and we found that the Hayden, Eden, is not in the east, but Mikadim, from the east. Kadim, the place of the habitation of Elohim, a metaphor of the Shamayim, heavens. So we understand that eating is something that originated in the spirit from Elohim, that was seeded into the atom, because the seed, as Yeshua taught, is the word. If you're up on your scriptures, you'll know that all that I'm saying is true. The seed is the word. So it says, Ve'eta Yahweh Elohim beheden mikadim, and seeded Yahweh Elohim with Eden from the Kadim, Ha'adam, the Adam. He seeded him with what? The word. Word of truth. And through the obedience of truth, there is a birth within us of divine nature. Divine nature is transfused into man through the application and appropriation of the word. And so we understand that Eden is not a geographical location from earth. It has not its origination from earthly matter, but from the Kadim. Eden is from the Kadim and not from the Haaretz, the earth. This must be perfectly understood, because I understand why the confusion exists, because I used to be confused listening to all my life the mythology of supremacist theology and their little stories of snakes and trees and, eating an apple, and all this world disaster came on man, sin, iniquity, and, we turned the scriptures into a storybook instead of seeking the spiritual revelation that is in the word. And we want to break that tradition of mythologizing the word and actually procuring from it a divine relationship with Elohim through divine revelation or enlightenment, understanding of his word. So the Kadim is the place of origin of the Eden. And from the Eden came forth a garden, Gan, a order. And we know every kingdom, every nation is an order. America is a democratic republic order. China is a socialist communistic order. The order of Yahweh is a divine order called a kingdom. But that kingdom is not an external kingdom that has its origin in the earth, but from the Kadim, the east, the place of the habitation of Elohim, the place where all divine activity and reality exist. Now, as we can see, reception of the divine flow from the east, the place of Elohim habitation, it is a must that we see in this the way established by Elohim. It cannot be changed or compromised. That's the American way. Get what you want through compromise. But in Elohim, that way is annulled. There is no compromise. There is no middle ground. Lukewarm water that we drink is either cold or hot. Accept or reject. But let's not play the game of lukewarm, sociocratic religion. It's not going to get anyone anywhere. Thus it is ordained that we conform to his standard and not have the foolish expectation and believe that Yahweh will conform to our standard and character. The will of Yahweh is to replace what is ours and place within the vessels of human existence what is his. This is why Yeshua taught us, and unless you deny yourself and take up your stake, you are not worthy to be my disciple. Because nothing that you have, even as nothing that Hebel had, or sacrifice to Elohim from self, can bring peaceful relationship with Elohim. This must be perfectly understood. We will see in this final lesson that the bringing forth of divine intelligence and its goods, fruit, is dependent on our staying in the established position of Hayden that bringeth forth Gan, divine order of intelligence, that are Yahweh ordained for his people who are called by his name. Thus it continues to say, and we'll read it first in the Hebrew so that we will be acquainted with the words from the original Hebrew text. Ve'yatzmach Yahweh Elohim mim ha'adama kol at nakmad li marhe vetob li mahochol ve'at ha-chayim betuk chagan ve'at ha-dayat to well ra. Being translated, and caused to spring forth, grow, blossom out, come to its full capacity. Yahweh Elohim, from the Adamah, ground, soil, the good soil Yeshua spoke of, every tree which shall be pleasant or delightful to the sight, and good for the eating, the tree of living ones within the order, Gan, and the tree outside the order that functions in opposition to the will of Elohim, the intelligence of the carnal mind, of the knowledge of good and evil. We see that all activity of the kingdom, the order, the Gan, the garden, is from Yahweh Elohim. And everything that is from Yahweh Elohim is for the purpose of keeping us in a peaceful relationship with him so that he can execute his power through us. Thus Elohim is the causative of the kingdom in the Adam, and the power that brings forth the activity of the order unto fullness and preservation of that order within us. From the divine action every tree springs forth, tree meaning the intelligence of divine truth, and sight meaning the understanding. It is to be restated that the branch of the tree symbolizes intelligence, and the leaves knowledge, the blossom wisdom, and the fruit divine character or the good of life, the good of the divine nature that is being manifested through the intelligence of divine truth. Thus it says, and good from the eating. See? We have to do something with what Yah gives us. We have to eat it. That is, appropriate it. For in eating there are several processes that must take place. Chewing, signifying reasoning of thought. Swallowing or ingesting, signifying confirmation and reception. Digestion, signifying assimilation and engraftment. In this case, the engraftment of the divine good that is embodied in all truth. And from this, power to live or to express the character of divine good called fruit. Here I translated Kayim as living ones, which I don't believe that it breaks the rules of translation, since the masculine plural is defined quantitatively and qualitatively, as in Elohim, which quantitatively means mighty ones, and qualitatively means mighty one. Also, the term Zalikim can be translated quantitatively righteous ones, and qualitatively means a righteous one. Here I apply the quantitative meaning of Kayim, since the tree of Elohim is for the purpose of giving life to mankind, and the Elohim, Yeshua, being the word or tree of life, is said to be a life-giving spirit, not some man hanging on the wall, not this humanoid image of supremative man hanging on the wall. This is blasphemy. We're not on that level. We're not speaking of this false Jesus. But we're speaking of the Elohim that manifested in the flesh, Yeshua, who through his death inaugurated the new covenant and transcended the flesh in his resurrection and glorification and went back to the form of spirit. Thus it is written, he became a life-giving spirit. Very simple concept. So this rendition flows comparatively with the scriptures, showing that the Elohim is the tree of life, manifested from the substance of Yahuwah. The pattern and substance of the Elohim being engrafted into the Adam, who is within the divine order. Gan, the divine order that is from Hedan, the divine nature of good. Thus did Paul teach concerning the mysteries of Elohim, the Messiah in you, that is the tree of life from which we are to feed from the hope of glory. Colossians 1:27. In this we understand, we are seeing why Yeshua taught us the kingdom, the order of Elohim is within you, and why he also taught, clean out the inside and the outside shall be made clean. The causation produces the effect. You can take soap and water and clean up and put your little religious clothes on and all the other hoop-de-doo, religious aesthetics, and of course you look clean to the physical eye, but to the spiritual eye, Elohim is looking at the causation. That's why he told the Pharisees and Sadducees that you are whitewashed tombs. See, you done washed out the outside, look good in the eyes of man, but within you is dead man bones. Okay? That means spiritual death. Dead man's bones. So, when the death is removed and the life is infused through the obedience of truth, we become Chaim, living ones that feed upon the tree of life. Okay? If we truly embody the teachings of the Messiah, and I am a Messianic Hebrew, and I have no argument with those that don't believe Yeshua is the Messiah, that's fine. We have no argument. Be faithful to what you believe, and I'll be faithful to what I believe. We will discern how adamantly he was against the aesthetic order of the carnal mind, and why I parenthesis outside the order. When speaking of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, since it is symbolizing the carnal mind related to human intelligence and producing man only a false light of intelligence that is unable to form and cleanse the heart. See, only Yah can do that. Only Yah can cleanse the heart, the nature of human existence. You don't have the power to do that. You don't have the ability to do that. You are an assimilative being. Whatever you eat, you become. You eat of the knowledge of good and evil, then you become a vessel of good and evil. Good in aesthetics, evil in heart. But if you eat upon the tree of life, walking in the obedience of truth and seeding the garden in its due season, you will begin to proliferate what is of the divine nature, divine character. You will see that as you eat more life, more death will die in you until the righteousness of Yahweh is fulfilled within you. The fact that the tree of good and evil is representing the carnal mind, the human ability of intelligence, is shown by the apostle where he states the same cause and effect when speaking of the carnal mind. In Genesis it says, if you eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you shall die. Now, let's think about that. If the tree was a physical tree, and these were physical fruits, we would be the most intelligent creatures on this earth. A tree with fruit that has knowledge. I know no physical offspring related to the tree species that bear fruit that communicates intellectual knowledge to man. This is a hint that it's not talking about a tree in a park and a snake who's whispering to a naked woman to eat an apple. But Paul states that the same cause and effect when he says, for to be carnally minded is death. Same effect, the same cause. But to be spiritually minded is life and peace. The same cause, the same effect. So Paul here sees this truth, but he's communicating it in a very common language, unlike in the Old Testament that communicated in prophetic, metaphorical, or parabolic language. In my understanding, the same effect is produced from the same cause. Thus in Revelation 11 it is taught that the Gentiles are in the outer court, that is, outside of the divine order, and functions and understands from the dim light of the carnal mind, which Yeshua called the light of darkness, or the intelligence of a darkened cognitive process. They cannot see beyond the zone of the flesh. They can only see within the darkness of the flesh. That's why you come up with all these goofy, asinine ideals that you call theology. And then want to blame this goofiness on Yahweh as some special divine revelation about you being from Jupiter, or some other ideology that does not contain the sense of moral responsibility that the true word of Elohim and the true revelation of Elohim gives to each individual that truly receives him. You can't walk away when you see the sick. You got to pray for them. You can't walk away when you see the poor. You can't walk away from your community as it descends into moral degradation, and be silent, eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow you don't want to die. So we're not going to say tomorrow you die. You never had enough courage to die. Otherwise you wouldn't be still in slavery. So we're not going to go there. But the carnal mind is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It keeps you in the outer courts. It keeps you in a false light, a light of darkness that does not produce doctrine that is able to vivify and to give power for active service to Yahuwah. This kingdom power is manifested from within. You're not going to find it in the earth of Israel. That's a Zionist nation. They're more atheists than they are Yahuwah worshipers. They're supremacists. Okay? Not because they're white, because of what they believe. White is a doctrine, not the tone of a skin. Believe me, you got people blacker than night in skin who are still white in their ideology and mental process of thought, who will betray you because you have a black cognitive thought of liberation, freedom, and exodus from this wickedness. A receptive thought towards what is good and what is right, what is true. A true definition of freedom, and not this materialistic, cosmetic freedom that they has given us, that we have ate as gluttons and betrayed ourselves. So those who say that Messianic Hebrews yet function on the basis of dress clothes, fleshly rituals, and ideals of race supremacist culture and color code systems, suggesting their relationship with Elohim is established by a skin tone or geographical origin, are in the spirit called Goyim, Gentiles. They're functioning in the darkness, the light of darkness, the intelligence of darkness, an intelligence that can only see things on an empirical level. So they bring the image of Elohim down to the corruptible image of man and blaspheme against the incorruptible image of the living one. See, what you got on your wall, how you talk, how you walk about, all that manifestation, that anger, shows that the tree that you're eating from is good and evil. You look good, but everything you say produce evil, contempt, negation, and minimalization. Anti-organization, anti-unity, anti-everything that brings power. You're not Hebrew. You haven't crossed over from the outer courts to the inner courts. Oh, you can become Hebrew, but you got to practice self-denial, extinction, law, and stop playing and create more concept, confusion than peace. Those who function from the intelligence of the carnal mind and deduce from prophetic writing errors that are related only to the flesh, in the spirit are called also Edomites, because as Esau, they value only the things related to the flesh. See, that's how you identify Esau. And cast aside their spiritual inheritance. See, they don't want the spiritual, because the spiritual comes with more responsibility. Moral responsibility. So they don't want Elohim kingdoms manifested in them, because there's a demand for moral responsibility. And when they come in contact with the message of Yahweh's kingdom, they repulse from it, because they don't care about the conditions around them due to the assault of darkness. They're not willing to defend the helpless and the weak. They're not willing to feed the poor. They're not willing to build a righteous economics for a righteous people, to support one another, to back up what they say in cliche. They ain't willing to put no money on the table. They waiting for you to do it, the righteous. So they probably can steal it. Go get a new car, drive around the hood and look important. So we understand that the Kadim is from, that the Hayden, Eden, it's from the Kadim. It is of a spiritual origin. And that we are the living ones that eat from the tree of life, the living ones. So, if we, the living ones, eat from the tree of life, those that are spiritually dead and contained outside of the tabernacle in the outer courts, they eat from the tree of what? Death. They are messengers of death. Anyone who teach hate is a messenger of death. Anyone who teach race is a messenger of death. Anyone who teach that if you dress like this and you perform rituals without revelation is teaching you death, for the letter is death. The externalities of the word does not produce redemption. It does not produce a revivification of the ontological vessel within the soul. The ontological vessel, which is the premises of all human life, must be transformed by Yahweh through a compliant obedience to the truth unto the fulfillment of Torah and the prophets. In you. Don't just put it on Yahshua. If his purpose was to fulfill the Torah and the prophets and you follow him, then you share his purpose. If his purpose was to teach that he who wish to be received into the kingdom keep the commandments, then you got to keep the commandments. Call yourself what you want. If you're not keeping the commandments, you're not Hebrew, you're not Christian. All you is a fake, phony, and you another component of the supremacist system that is exploiting the world with lies. So let's just be real about it. Let's not play no more games with it. Let's not be cute with it. Let's not put up our pretty pictures and, the Lord will make a way. Yeah, if you do like Moses, he said, why do you call on me, Moses? The rod that I gave you, lift it up. Lift up your rod. Then maybe the Goyim won't have to ask you, where is your El? He'll see where it is. He'll see that rod of El, that rod of power by which you are able to walk through his errors, the promiscuous nature of his culture, where you lifting your head up instead of bowing your head down to the system so you can get crumbs. The power to say we need our own civilization, the power of unity, organization, and compliant association to build something beyond our slavery. Oh, we don't want to go there. All right? I've been doing this for 20-something years. I done heard it all the excuses, all the cliches, everything. All the religious makeup, all the bull crap that we continue to play with in the delusion that we're going somewhere, and we still on Martin Luther King Boulevard trying to find Malcolm X Street. We still saying that we're strong people, but strong people pick up weights. So Yeshua described the hypocrite as him who says but does not do. Check yourself out, because we praying for a great move of Elohim beyond this cliche and rhetorical religious idiocy. We're not trying to hear about you being from Venus. We're not trying to hear about, wait, one day God is going to take us away and take us to Israel on a chariot. No. Elohim is building an army, and his voice will go forth before the army, and they will run upon the walls, and fire shall proceed forth before them. This is what the prophecy says. It didn't give no prophecy of folks sitting around on wheelchairs or rocking chairs waiting for the Lord to come. Instead of saying Lord, we say Yahweh now. Instead of saying God, we say Elohim now. Same doctrine, different words, same attitude, different word, same religious culture, different terminology used to disguise that it is the same nihilistic slave doctrine that has kept humanity in the shackles of spiritual bondage. I'm going to stop here. I've already proved. I can go on and talk about the four rivers, the four places related to the four zones of spiritual mind, related to the four lobes of the brain. But I'm not going to go there. I've said enough. This should be enough to let you know the kingdom of Elohim is within you. If it's not enough, then we just don't have enough to give you. Okay? No more babysitting. We're going to build. We're going to build. And we're going to build into a true nation and people come forth that will bring glory to the name of Yahweh and his Mashiach, Yeshua. We're going to build. Brothers and sisters, it's been nice talking to you. Nice speaking this word to you. I hope some of you hear. For you who don't, that's cool. But I hope the few hear, and the few will become a great and mighty army, and the voice of Yahweh go forth from them, and we tear down the system of racism and hate, of exploitation and weakness, and build a mighty holy nation that brings glory to Yahweh Elohim. Brothers and sisters, I love you. Shalom Aleichem.